Hi everybody, Bryant and Kiki here. We are not in the shop at whatever time it is
You don't have a
right
watch.
now. I don't know. What time is it? 9:30 p.m.
We actually we actually got to come back
in the daylight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we finished at the shop around
7.
No, earlier.
When we got back from the doors.
Yes.
It was about 7.
Yes, we installed the doors today. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we had a pretty good day today in the shop. The morning started off by making sure we were at the machine shop, Northern Lucas here in Lubbock. By the time they opened at 8 a.m., we were actually there a little bit early, and they let us in, and we got some work done. We had the pitman arm, which had the original pitman arm had a weird bend in it that we're finding was due to a different style of steering on some of the third-gen Dodge trucks, and that style of pitman arm would actually cause some bump steer issues. So finding this issue may actually be more helpful than just having a bad pitman arm. It may also improve the steering quality on the truck. So we got the correct pitman arm from O'Reilly's at 9:45 last night, right before they closed. We took it to the machine shop, again, Northern Lucas here in Lubbock. We were there by 8 a.m. and gave them the part, and we needed it bored out to accept a 3/4 inch bolt instead of a tapered bolt, like a ball joint bolt for your tie rods, because I don't run that style of steering anymore. They had it done in 20 minutes or so, and it was $25. It was awesome to get that done so quickly this morning. We ran around to all the other bolt shops trying to find replacement bolts for a bunch of things around the vehicle, and nobody had anything in stock. Flange bolts are really hard to find. We are converting everything as much as we can on the truck from a hex head with a washer to a flange bolt and a locking flange nut. The reason for this is to eliminate excess hardware, which are washers, and to improve clamping force with a stronger hold with a flanged bolt and nut rather than with a washer. And also, these are metal locking washers like a Stover nut rather than a nylock nut, which if you have a tendency to reuse the nuts more than once, or if you run them down with an impact or whatever, you can melt the nylon out of that nut, and then it's not any good anymore. It doesn't lock. So I wanted to swap everything over that I could to flange nuts and flange bolts and locking flange nuts, the key thing. And of course, these are all grade 8, or if they're metric bolts, they're grade 10.9 or 12.9, which are some of the best that you can get for a reasonable price for these tools, and they're plenty strong for what we are doing. Coarse or fine thread, it doesn't particularly matter to me at this stage. Fine thread where we need extra clamping force, coarse where it doesn't really matter that much. So instead of going to the stores, Kiki helped me out by having our list, and we ended up ordering almost all of the bolts and nuts that we're going to replace from McMaster Car on the app on the iPhone, and it'll all be here on Tuesday. So we're probably going to be doing a lot of bolt swapping in Vegas when we get there. Let's see, what else did we do this morning before lunch?
Well, before lunch, after we ran around trying to get all the bolts, and actually a lot of the shops, they were pretty helpful.
Right, they just didn't carry.
They just didn't carry it. They could order it for us,
but it would
take too long. So like Brian said, these nuts and bolts are just very rare. Like people just don't use
people don't use them that much.
So after that, we went back straight to the shop, and of course we had to try out the pitman arm.
The new pitman arm.
The new pitman arm.
Yep, we test fit that.
And we set a goal that before lunchtime we would get all the steering ready, so that when we came back from lunch, we can finish torquing everything in the front axle. Yeah. Because our goal today was to get the car moving again.
Yep, and be able to put some actual miles on it instead of just around the block at the shop.
Yeah.
The guys at Seems Legit Garage told me I need to go through all the gears at about 2,000 RPMs, let it coast and bring it back up to speed and coast and whatnot so that the computer can learn some things as we're driving. So that was our goal. So before lunch, we got the pitman arm put in. We got the steering brace put back on. The containment bearing for the steering brace that goes on the end of the special nut, that is still, we're waiting on new replacement bolts for that, again flanged, and so I didn't install that. It's not critical to drive the truck, so we'll make sure that gets installed before we race. And then we went to lunch, and then we came back and we started torquing. And we torqued a lot of bolts.
We torqued a lot.
We swapped out 2 bolts, one on each side on the radius arm. I had some hardware that I just bought locally, and of course it wasn't right, but it was just a place filler until I got the right stuff. And then I got an all new set of hardware from Furch Fab from Kevin for his arms, and so we swapped out bolts on the lower end of that. We had to use a ratchet strap. And what I call a pecker neck, which is not a very well-known name for a tool.
No.
And we used the floor jack and a bunch of different tools, and Kiki was a big help.
That was what actually took a huge chunk of our afternoon.
Yeah, getting everything lined up, because we already had the frame side was in, the upper link on the radius arm was in, and the shocks were in, the steering was in, the track bar was in, so the axle was pretty well secured.
Yeah.
So we had to do a lot of maneuvering in order to get everything lined up right. I also installed cam bolt eliminator washers in it. So if you're familiar with a 3rd gen Dodge axle, the bottom bolt has an off-center washer, hardened washer in it that allows you to adjust the caster, which is forward and back leaning of the axle, with that adjustable washer. Well, I don't need that much adjustability in my race car, plus the radius arm, the upper link, is what adjusts your caster. So I got these eliminator washers in order to make a more solid mount that doesn't have this funky bolt and funky washer on both sides. And it was an issue at the last race, came loose and the caster adjusted. So I put those eliminators in, and then we can just through bolt everything and torque it to spec, and we won't have any shifting of the axle that way. So we have to get those lined up. They are machined out for the slot that the caster bolt adjustment bolt rides along in the bottom of the axle. So we have to get it lined up with those. It was kind of tricky.
Yeah, it required a lot of creative thinking and creative use of tools.
Yep.
And definitely teamwork.
And not that much cursing today.
No, because I'm around. So no, but definitely teamwork was a huge thing today.
Kiki got to use her big muscles.
Yeah.
And torque a lot of the bolts. Torque a lot of the bolts, and so we got the whole front end together and torqued up. We torqued every bolt on the front end. And then we decided that the truck needed some doors. And what better way to put doors on your race truck than to drive it to the complete other side of town and
put mileage on
it, shift it through all the gears, and go get your doors that you're keeping at somebody else's shop because your shop doesn't have room for them. So we drove over to my buddy Jeremy's place where he was holding the doors for the truck. We got the doors put on and the gaps straightened out enough that Jeremy could leave it alone. I kept telling him it's a race car, not a show car. It doesn't matter as long as they open and close. But he wanted it to be straight and looking nice, which I appreciate that. Then we drove it home, and it did great. I took Jeremy out for a spin, and we ran down some dirt turn rows. We may have done a few RPMs over 2,000, but that's okay because it, break it in the way you're going to drive it, and that's the way we're going to drive it. I'm super thrilled with the way it's driving, and riding and everything. It's awesome. It feels so good to drive it. We put almost 30 miles on it.
Even as a passenger, it felt really good too. Like the shocks and everything. Like on the bumpy roads, it felt really good. And I think what's really cool is with the sequential, the gearbox or the system that you're having right now, it's really smart. You can actually in real time, as
you can tell it's learning.
You can tell that it's learning and adjusting to the way you're shifting. And even as a passenger, I can feel that, and just the speed that it's learning at. So I'm just very curious to see what happens in maybe the next couple of days if we're able to get more drive time on it and see how it learns and how it adjusts.
Yep. Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
Yeah, it's just getting better and
yeah.
smoother.
When we first started driving it, a few of the shifts were banging into gear really hard, and then those progressively got softer. I'm assuming that it was taking note of line pressure and input and output speeds and whatnot, and making adjustments for the shift patterns. Now, it is connected to the engine, but it doesn't have any engine management, so I don't know if it's defueling when we're shifting. So I was doing at throttle shifts, and I tried both: off throttle shifts, on throttle shifts, higher RPM shifts, rapid shifting, slow shifting, up shifting, down shifting, coasting, everything like that, just to give it a wide variety of things to learn how to map and figure out. And it really impressed me how quickly the shifting feel changed as we were driving it. One of the hardest shifts was when we went into 8th gear. Man, it banged into 8th really, really hard. Concerned me a little bit, but then the next time we shifted into 8th, it wasn't nearly as hard. So that was nice. I'll need to check the fluid again before we take it out. The 8HP has it's got a very difficult, well, it's not difficult, but it's a time-consuming procedure to check the fluid. You have to get the truck up on jack stands. You have to run it into gear, run it out of gear, put it in neutral, run it in reverse, put it back in neutral, get the temperature up to 122 degrees Fahrenheit minimum. Then you can check the level through the fill hole in the side of the pan. There's no dipstick, and add fluid if necessary. So for me, I have to carry a little extra fluid because I've got a larger cooler and the lines that run all the way back. That's not factory, so I require more fluid as it pumps it through. But it's not a big deal, especially with my Harbor Freight pump that I have. I can fill the fluid rather quickly. But yeah, that's what we got done today. Rob came over from Rob Tech. He 3D printed me some really trick mounts for some of my Baja Designs rock lights. We'll do a video and some information on those tomorrow as we start trying to finish up the truck. We've got basically 3 days to get the truck done and ready to go, with the minimal amount of work left on it to do in Vegas when we get there. Most of Vegas, I hope, will just be retorquing every single bolt on the truck, changing the fluids, and just doing minor adjustments, adjusting belts and seats and things of that nature in order to get it race ready. I want it to be 99% ready by the time we leave here, and I think we'll do that. Tomorrow morning, we are going to do a little welding. I've got welding to do on the race truck. I've got welding to do on the chase truck. We're going to see where we can get knocked out, and then we're probably going to call it a bit of an early day, around noon or so, around lunchtime tomorrow, because we have a fun activity Saturday evening that we've been invited to go do. And so we're going to take a little bit of break from race truck stuff, but I feel really good about it. We drove it, we put doors on it, we drove it back to the shop. It didn't blow up. It made it the whole way. The cops didn't stop us. I'm pretty happy about all that.
The radios are good.
The intercoms are working. They do pick up quite a bit of wind noise.
But then again, you don't have a windshield.
Well, yeah, with the headsets, it's quite a bit of wind noise with the headsets. With a full face helmet on, it won't be that bad. And if I put a different sock on there, like one of those wind fuzzy socks on the microphone, it'd probably be a little better.
I would say, considering the conditions we were in today, especially the first part where we had no doors, I thought that the intercom was pretty impressive.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
And it was, I think one other thing that we were listening out for during our test drive was, of course, random sounds or anything like that. And what's good is that, besides the what do you call that? The shocks.
Oh, the bypasses.
The bypasses.
Yeah, Kiki. This was Kiki's first trip in a vehicle equipped with high performance, really big bypass shocks.
Because we don't need that in our rally.
So she didn't know what the clicking noise was, and that, to be honest, when we first bought the truck back in 2015, it took me riding on the spare tire, holding the roll cage in the back, in the snow, driving up and down sidewalks and curbs to figure out that it was the shocks making that noise too. So they're really loud and they translate through the whole cage.
Yeah.
Those bypass clicks.
Yes, that's the thing. I thought it was inside the actual, car or the, the cabin part. So I was listening out for that. But the good news also is that besides that, we didn't have any other sounds at all.
Nope, no other strange noises.
No strange noises.
Good temperatures.
Our cables and everything, wires, all
were flapping around.
Yeah, very clean. So that's really exciting.
Heck yes.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this edition of Racetruck Diaries. Oh, we celebrated by going and having dinner at Costco. Yeah. Hot dogs and pizza.
And socks.
And socks. We didn't eat the socks. We did pick up a unique kitchen tool, which will be used in the shop, and we'll make a video on that.
That will be fun.
Because I've been thinking about ways to best organize my spare parts and keep them safe and protected and clean in the environments that we're always in. And I had an idea, and we're going to try it out over the weekend, and we'll make a video on that as well, and it can be something that y'all can use too, or maybe you already do. So more on that later.
I think it's good because when you said it, I immediately knew exactly what you wanted to do with it, and I think that it would be something really helpful, especially for the guys that are going to be in the chase truck.
Yep.
And
everything will be neat, organized, packed, and labeled, and easy to tell what's what.
Yeah.
And be able to sort through it without having to dig through a bucket full of junk.
Things, yeah.
So, cool. Anyway, this is episode 10 of Racetruck Diaries. We are almost ready to go to Vegas to Reno. That's coming up in less than 18 days. We are almost there. Oh, it's been a process. Thank you all for following along. I really appreciate Kiki being here and helping me. I couldn't be at this point in prep progress without her. So I appreciate that, spending all the time in my hot shop with me and getting our twerk on. Oh, our torque on.
He was actually twerking.
No, never. Okay, see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.